The morning sun cast long shadows across the ruins of New Geneva Colony as Marcus Chun adjusted his rifle scope for the thousandth time. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrian fleet had reduced his home to smoking craters and twisted metal. 3 days since he'd watched his wife Sarah and daughter Emma disappear in a flash of alien plasma fire. The Galactic Council had been meeting for hours in their massive ship hovering above the destroyed settlement. Through his scope, Marcus could see the various alien delegates gesturing wildly in what appeared to be heated discussion. The ship's transparent meeting chamber made for an excellent viewing platform, though he doubted the council had intended it that way. Marcus had been off-world when the attack happened, returning from a hunting expedition in the outer system. The distress beacon from New Geneva had reached him just as he was preparing to dock. Instead of coming home to his family's warm embrace, he'd arrived to find nothing but death and destruction. The council ship represented 7 different species, all supposedly civilized members of the galactic community. The Zephyrians, with their reptilian features and cold yellow eyes, sat prominently at the head table. Their representative, Admiral Sect, gestured dismissively as he spoke to the others. Marcus had learned enough of their language during his years as a colonial scout to understand pieces of their conversation. They were discussing the human problem, how Earth's colonies had been expanding too quickly, how humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable. The attack on New Geneva had been a measured response to human expansion into Zephyrian-claimed space. Never mind that the space had been empty when humans arrived. Never mind the families who had built their lives there. Through his scope, Marcus watched Admiral Sect lean back in his chair with what might have been satisfaction on an alien face. The council was nodding along with his words. The ethereal delegates, tall and graceful with their silvery skin, seemed particularly convinced. Even the usually neutral Corvin representatives appeared to be siding with the Zephyrians. Marcus had spent 5 years serving with the Colonial Defense Force before settling down to start a family. He knew how to remain hidden, how to calculate wind speed and bullet drop over impossible distances. Most importantly, he knew how to wait. The Council ship's shields were designed to stop large-scale attacks from other vessels. They weren't built to stop a single, well-aimed projectile from a human sniper rifle. Marcus had studied the technical specifications during his service days. Every shield system had gaps, places where the energy field was weakest to allow for communication arrays and sensor equipment. As Admiral Sect rose to address the full council, Marcus made his final calculations. Distance, 2,000 meters. Wind speed, minimal. Target, clear. The Admiral was speaking about human savagery and the need for stronger action against Earth's colonies. Marcus's finger found the trigger. He thought of Sarah's laugh, of Emma's first steps, of the life they'd built together in the peaceful valley that was now a crater. The rifle's weight felt familiar in his hands, like an old friend returning in his darkest hour. The council continued their debate about humanity's fate, completely unaware that one human was about to make his opinion very clear. Marcus controlled his breathing, steadied his aim, and prepared to deliver a message that would echo across the galaxy. The shot would be heard on Earth itself. The crack of Marcus's rifle echoed across the devastated landscape like thunder. Admiral Sect's speech ended abruptly as the high-velocity round punched through the council chamber's viewport, creating a spider web of fractures in the reinforced transparent aluminum. Emergency alarms screamed through the ship as atmosphere began venting into space. The council delegates erupted into chaos. The ethereals flickered in and out of visibility in their panic, while the insectoid hive mind representatives clicked and chittered frantically. The massive Corvin delegates, each weighing nearly half a ton, struggled to move their bulk toward the emergency exits. Only Admiral Sect remained motionless at the podium, his yellow eyes wide with shock as he stared at the bullet hole mere inches from where his head had been moments before. Marcus cycled the bolt of his rifle smoothly, ejecting the spent cartridge. The brass casing clinked against the broken concrete beside him as he chambered another round. He'd missed intentionally, though the council would never know that. A dead admiral would have made them martyrs in the eyes of some species. A terrified admiral would serve his purposes much better. Through his scope, Marcus watched the emergency force fields engage, sealing the breach in the chamber. The delegates slowly returned to their seats, but their earlier composure was gone. Admiral Sek's scaled hands trembled as he gripped the podium, his translator device stuttering as it tried to process his rapid, fearful speech. The ship's external sensors would be scanning for the source of the attack, but Marcus had chosen his position well. The ruins of the colony's old mining facility provided excellent cover, and the metal deposits in the surrounding rock would interfere with their scans. He had time for what came next. Standing slowly, Marcus activated his own translator device and spoke into the communicator he'd taken from the colony's emergency supplies. His voice would be broadcast directly to the council chamber on a frequency he knew they monitored. "Attention, Galactic Council," he said, his voice carrying the weight of grief and fury. "You sit in judgment of my species while hovering over the graves of my family. You speak of human aggression while the ashes of innocent children still warm the ground beneath your ship." Inside the chamber, the delegates looked around frantically, trying to locate the source of the transmission. Admiral Sect had recovered enough to hiss something in his own language, probably ordering his ship's crew to trace the signal. "I am Marcus Chun," he continued, watching through a scope as several delegates recoiled at hearing a human name. "3 days ago, I had a wife named Sarah who loved to tend her garden. I had a daughter named Emma who was learning to read. I had a home where we felt safe under the protection of galactic law." Marcus paused, adjusting his scope to get a clearer view of Admiral Sek's face. The Zephyrian was leaning forward, listening intently despite his obvious fear. "Your ships destroyed all of that in the name of territorial expansion," Marcus said. "You murdered 15,000 innocent people because their homes sat on a world you decided you wanted. And now you sit here debating whether to do the same to other human colonies." The ethereal delegate, barely visible in his agitated state, seemed to be arguing with the others. Marcus couldn't make out the words, but the body language was clear enough. Some of the council members were reconsidering their position. "I could have killed Admiral Sect just now," Marcus announced, causing the Zephyrian to flinch visibly. "I chose not to. Do you know why? Because unlike you, I don't believe in murdering people who can't fight back. But that mercy has limits." The ship's defensive systems were coming online. Marcus could see the targeting arrays extending from the hull, sweeping the area below with sensor beams. They would find him eventually, but not before he finished what he'd started. "Every human colony you destroy will bring more like me," he said into the communicator. "We don't forget our dead. We don't forgive those who target our families. And we never, ever stop hunting those who threaten our homes." Admiral Sect was speaking urgently to his crew, probably ordering them to open fire on the ruins below. Marcus smiled grimly and prepared to move to his next position. The real conversation was just beginning. The council ship's weapons opened fire on Marcus's former position, turning the mining facility ruins into molten slag. By then, he was already 300 meters away, moving through the underground maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the colony's site. The Zephyrians were thorough in their destruction, but they hadn't thought to map the human infrastructure before attacking. Marcus emerged from a ventilation shaft near the old school building, or what was left of it. The playground where Emma used to laugh with her friends was now a crater filled with twisted metal. Her classroom, where she'd proudly shown him her first drawings of their family, was simply gone. The rage that filled him was cold and calculating, tempered by years of military training. He activated his communicator again, knowing the council would still be listening. Their sensors had lost track of him in the tunnel system, and he could see them through his rifle scope, heads turning frantically as they tried to locate his new position. "You want to understand, humans, Admiral Sect?" Marcus's voice echoed through the council chamber. "Let me tell you about the last message my daughter sent me. She was 8 years old, hiding in the school basement when your ships arrived. Do you know what she said?" The council chamber had fallen completely silent. Even the usually chattering hive mind representatives had gone still. Through his scope, Marcus could see Admiral Sek's scaled face, the yellow eyes fixed on the communication console, as if he could see through it to Marcus himself. She said, "Daddy, the pretty lights in the sky are getting closer. They're so bright. That was my little girl's last transmission before your plasma cannons turned her school into glass." Marcus shifted position again, this time setting up behind the remains of what had been the colony's medical center. Dr. Yates had delivered Emma here, had treated Sarah's broken arm last winter when she fell from the apple tree they'd planted together. Now, it was just another pile of rubble marking the grave of human dreams. The Galactic Council speaks of law and order, Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the electromagnetic spectrum to the ship above. But what law protects a child's right to grow up? What order allows the strong to murder the weak simply because they want their land? Through his scope, he could see the ethereal delegate flickering more slowly now, a sign of deep contemplation in their species. The Corvin representatives were shifting their massive bulk uncomfortably, their translator devices working overtime to process rapid exchanges between species. Admiral Sect stood abruptly and began speaking in rapid Zephyrian. Marcus caught enough words to understand the gist. The Admiral was trying to justify the attack, claiming the humans had been warned to leave Zephyrian space. It was a lie, of course. No warning had ever been sent. Admiral, Marcus interrupted, his voice cutting through the Zephyrian speech like a blade. I served 5 years with the Colonial Defense Force. I know every diplomatic protocol, every warning system, every legal requirement for territorial disputes. You sent no warnings. You filed no claims. You simply arrived and opened fire on sleeping families. The ship's weapons were searching for him again, their targeting beams sweeping across the ruins like deadly searchlights. Marcus had already planned his next 3 positions, each one offering different tactical advantages and escape routes. The tunnels beneath the colony were extensive, built to withstand the planet's severe weather patterns. They were serving him well now. But you made one mistake, Admiral, Marcus said, adjusting his rifle scope to focus on the Zephyrian's face. You left one survivor, one witness, one man who loved the people you murdered more than he fears dying. The targeting beam swept across his position, and Marcus rolled sideways into the shadows of a collapsed wall. The ship's guns fired immediately, but he was already moving, disappearing back into the tunnel system like a ghost. Every species in this galaxy needs to understand something. His voice continued over the communicator, now broadcasting from a completely different location. Humans don't fight wars the way you do. We don't line up our fleets and engage in honorable battle. When you threaten our families, we become something much more dangerous. Admiral Sect was screaming orders at his crew now, his composure completely shattered. The other council members watched in growing alarm as the supposedly superior Zephyrian military struggled to locate and eliminate a single human with a rifle. We become what I am now, Marcus said quietly, his words carrying the weight of absolute certainty. We become the nightmare that hunts you in the dark, the shot you never see coming. The price you pay for thinking human life is cheap. The ship's sensors swept frantically across the ruined colony, but Marcus Chun had become one with the shadows of his dead home, and his message was only beginning to spread across the galaxy. The debate in the council chamber had transformed into something Admiral Sect had never expected. What began as a simple discussion about containing human expansion had become a trial, with him as the defendant and a dead colony as evidence of his crimes. The ethereal delegate, now fully visible and radiating an aura of deep concern, was speaking in their melodic language. The translation came through clearly. The human speaks truth about warnings. Our records show no diplomatic contact with this colony before the attack. Marcus watched through his scope as Admiral Sect's scaled features contorted with rage. The Zephyrian was trapped between maintaining his story and facing the growing skepticism of the other council members. His yellow eyes darted between the delegates, as if searching for allies he could no longer find. Records can be falsified, Admiral Sect hissed, his translator device struggling with the rapid, angry speech. Humans are known for their deception. This one hides in ruins like a coward instead of facing honorable combat. Marcus had moved again, this time to the remains of Sarah's garden. The greenhouse where she'd grown earth vegetables and alien soil was nothing but fused sand now, but he could still smell the faint trace of her favorite roses in the air. They had been a gift for their anniversary, genetically modified to thrive in this world's unique atmosphere. Onohabru Kumba. Marcus spoke into his communicator, his voice carrying a bitter laugh. Was it honorable when you fired on evacuation shuttles? Was it honorable when your ships targeted the school and hospital first? Tell me, Admiral, what honor is there in murdering children who never held a weapon? The massive Corvin delegate raised one of his 6 arms, requesting permission to speak. When it came, his deep, rumbling voice filled the chamber. The humans' questions deserve answers. Corvin records also show no territorial claim filed by Zephyrian government for this system. Marcus could see Admiral Sek's predicament worsening. The Corvin were known throughout the galaxy for their meticulous record-keeping and absolute honesty. If they said no claim had been filed, it was fact beyond dispute. The Admiral's justification was crumbling like the buildings around Marcus. Perhaps came the clicking translation of the hive mind representative. The Council should examine the attack records more carefully. The pattern suggests systematic targeting of civilian infrastructure rather than military objectives. Through his scope, Marcus watched Admiral Sect realize that the narrative was slipping away from him. The other delegates were no longer nodding along with his explanations. Instead, they were asking uncomfortable questions about Zephyrian military doctrine and the legal basis for the attack. Marcus keyed his communicator again. "I'll make this simple for you, Admiral. Your government wanted this planet for its mineral resources. The mines beneath my feet contain rare earth elements essential for your shipbuilding industry. You couldn't claim the planet legally while humans were here, so you decided to remove us." The silence in the council chamber was deafening. Marcus had struck at the heart of the matter with the precision of his rifle shots. The Zephyrians needed the planet's resources, but galactic law prevented them from simply taking an inhabited world. "But here's what you didn't calculate," Marcus continued, moving through the shadows toward his final position. "You didn't factor in what happens when humans have nothing left to lose. You didn't consider that your surgical strike might leave witnesses. You certainly didn't think about the consequences of your actions being broadcast across the galaxy." Admiral Sect was frantically consulting with his advisors now, his earlier confidence replaced by growing panic. The other delegates watched this display with obvious concern. If the Zephyrians had acted without legal justification, it set a dangerous precedent for other aggressive species. Marcus emerged from the ruins near what had been the colony's main communications array. The massive dish was twisted and melted, but the backup transmitters in the underground bunker were still functional. Sarah had insisted they maintain the emergency broadcast systems, even though they'd lived in such a peaceful sector. "I've been recording this entire conversation," Marcus announced, causing visible shock among the council members. "Every word, every admission, every lie. This transmission is being broadcast to every human colony, every Earth military installation, and every independent news network in this sector of the galaxy." The revelation hit Admiral Sect like a physical blow. His scaled hands trembled as he realized the implications. The Zephyrian government's illegal attack on New Geneva wasn't just being discussed in a closed council session. It was being heard by billions of beings across the galaxy. "The galaxy will know what you did here," Marcus said quietly. "They'll know that the Galactic Council sat in judgment over the survivors of your war crime. They'll know that when one man demanded justice for 15,000 innocent dead, you tried to hunt him down like an animal." The weapons systems on the council ship had gone silent. Marcus could see the crew through the transparent sections of the hull, their attention focused on damage control rather than continuing the hunt. The political damage was spreading faster than any military response could contain it. But most importantly, Marcus continued, his voice carrying the weight of prophecy, "every human who hears this will understand that the galaxy sees us as expendable, and that Admiral Sect is a mistake that will cost you everything." 6 months later, the repercussions of Marcus Chen's stand at New Geneva had reshaped the political landscape of the galaxy. The recordings of the council session and Admiral Sec's admission had sparked outrage among dozens of species who had previously remained neutral in galactic politics. Marcus stood in the rebuilt memorial garden where Sarah's greenhouse once grew, watching as representatives from 23 different worlds laid wreaths for the New Geneva dead. The Corvin had been the first to demand justice, followed quickly by the Ethereals and several smaller species who had experienced Zephyrian aggression in the past. Admiral Sect had been stripped of rank and exiled to a penal colony on the edge of Zephyrian space. His government had fallen within weeks of the broadcast, replaced by a more moderate faction that publicly apologized for the attack and agreed to pay reparations to the families of the dead. But the real change went deeper than politics. The galaxy had learned something about humanity that day, something that Admiral Sect and his kind had fatally underestimated. Humans didn't just fight back when attacked. They remembered. They mourned. And they made sure the galaxy never forgot what had been done. The memorial garden was beautiful in ways that Sarah would have appreciated. Earth roses grew alongside alien flowers that bloomed in colors impossible on any human world. Each plant represented one of the 15,000 lives lost, tended by volunteers from across the galaxy who came to pay their respects. Marcus knelt beside a small marker where Emma's school had once stood. The inscription was simple: Emma Chun, age 8. She loved to draw pictures of her family. Below that, in a dozen different alien languages, were the words "Never Again." Mr. Chun, the voice belonged to Ambassador HFY, the ethereal who had replaced the previous council representative. Her silvery form shimmered in the afternoon light as she approached respectfully. The memorial ceremony is about to begin. They're asking if you'd like to speak. Marcus shook his head gently. He'd said everything that needed saying 6 months ago, perched in the ruins of his world with a rifle in his hands and grief in his heart. The galaxy had listened then. Now it was time to let others speak. The ceremony was attended by beings from across known space. Former enemies stood shoulder to shoulder with old allies, united in their condemnation of what had happened here. The Zephyrian delegation was notably absent, though their new government had sent a formal apology and a promise that such actions would never be repeated. As the speakers took their turns at the podium, Marcus reflected on the changes that single day had brought about. Human colonies were no longer seen as easy targets by aggressive species. Earth's military had been invited to participate in several peacekeeping operations. Most importantly, the Galactic Council had established new protocols requiring extensive diplomatic contact before any military action could be taken against inhabited worlds. But perhaps the most significant change was in how other species viewed humanity itself. The image of humans as primitive newcomers to galactic civilization had been replaced by something more complex and far more cautious. They had learned that humans could be dangerous not because they were aggressive, but because they cared so deeply about protecting what they loved. Ambassador HFY was speaking now, her melodic voice carrying across the memorial garden. The tragedy of New Geneva taught us that civilization is not measured by the size of our fleets or the reach of our empires. It is measured by how we treat the innocent, how we protect the defenseless, and how we respond when evil is done in our names. Marcus thought about Sarah and Emma, about the life they had built together in this peaceful place. Their dreams had been buried in plasma fire and twisted metal, but something else had grown from that tragedy. The galaxy was a little bit safer, a little bit more, just because one man had refused to let their deaths be meaningless. As the ceremony concluded, delegations from various worlds approached Marcus to offer their respects. The Corvin delegation presented him with a crystal sculpture that would emit light whenever their homeworld's sun rose, ensuring that some part of their world would always remember New Geneva. The Ethereals offered him a place among their diplomatic corps, recognizing his unique understanding of interspecies relations. Marcus politely declined the offers, as he had declined all the others over the past months. His place was here, tending the garden where his family rested, ensuring that their story continued to echo across the stars. He had become something more than a soldier or a colonist. He had become a guardian of memory, a keeper of the promise that such tragedies would not be repeated. As the alien ships departed and the memorial garden grew quiet again, Marcus walked among the flowers and remembered. In the distance, he could see the lights of New Geneva's rebuilt settlement, where new families were making new homes under the protection of galactic law. His daughter would have liked to see it, he thought. She would have loved watching the alien children play alongside human ones in the rebuilt school. The galaxy had learned to fear human determination that day 6 months ago. But, more importantly, it had learned to respect human love, the fierce, protective devotion that turned ordinary people into legends when those they cherished were threatened. Marcus Chun had fired only one shot that day, but its echoes would resonate throughout the galaxy for generations to come. And in gardens across 100 worlds, flowers bloomed in memory of those who died, and in hope that their sacrifice had made the universe a better place.